The Hague School. The Hague School is a group of artists who lived and worked in The Hague between 1860 and 1890. Their work was heavily influenced by the realist painters of the French Barbizon school. The painters of the Hague School generally made use of relatively somber colors, which is why the Hague School is sometimes called the Grey School. Precursors. After the great periods of Dutch art in the golden age of the 17th century, there were economic and political problems which diminished activity in art. The fine arts in the Netherlands enjoyed a revival around 1830, a time now referred to as the Romantic period in Dutch painting. The style was an imitation of the great 17th century artists. The most widely accepted paintings of this period were landscapes, and paintings which reflected national history. Andreas Schelfhout was a painter of landscapes, especially winter scenes, but also woodlands and the dunes between The Hague and Scheveningen. His best-known pupils included Wijnand Nguyen, Johan Barhold Jonkind, and Jan Hendrik Weissenbrock. Schelfhout's friend and occasional collaborator Hendrik van der Sandy Bakhuizen principally composed pastoral landscapes like those of Golden Age master Paulus Potter, but trained several prominent Hague School artists, notably his son Julius van der Sandy Bakhuizen, Willem Roelofs, François Pieter ter Meulen, Hubertus van Hove, and Weissenbrock. Wijnand Nguyen was one of the best of the Romantic artists of the time, and he had a great influence on Weissenbrock and Johannes Bosboom. Art training at that time was usually in the form of drawing schools, with no painting classes. Many young artists who later became members of the Hague School were frustrated by this and scattered to various places to receive the training they desired. Gerard Bilders left the Hague Academy of Drawing and completed training with the Swiss animal painter, Charles Humbert. Paul Gabriel went to Cleve, just over the German border, to study with the landscape painter Bernd Cornelis Kokerkeek. Joseph Israels, unsatisfied with the academies at Groningen and Amsterdam, left for Paris to attend classes at the studio of François-Edouard Picot. Jacob Meris left the Hague Academy for the corresponding institution in Antwerp, and from there he went to study with Ernest Hebert in Paris. His brother Matthijs Meris studied with Nicaise de Keyser in Antwerp. Hendrik Willem Mesdag left Groningen to perfect his skills in Brussels under Willem Roelofs. He also received additional instructions from Laurens Almatadema, who would later move to England, Alsterbeek and Barbizon. In the 1830s, artists like Theodore Rousseau, Jean-François Millet, Charles-François d'Orbigny, and Jean-Baptiste Camille Corot found their way to Barbizon, a forested area near Fontainebleau. The emphasis of their work here was on painting nature, as they saw it that Barbizon was not a school, but a community of artists. This gave rise to the well-known Barbizon School, and their example was followed in the 1850s by a few Dutch painters who gathered in Alsterbeek in order to work in the surrounding countryside. These painters had been influenced by the artists of the Barbizon School, and emulated them by registering their impressions with rapid strokes of color. Johannes Warnardus Bilders, father of Gerard Bilders, moved to Alsterbeek in 1852, and attracted many pupils. Anton Mauve, a cousin-in-law of Vincent van Gogh, the Meris brothers Jacob, Willem and Matthijs in the summer, as well as the regular visitors Willem Roelofs and Paul Gabriel. Some of these artists, such as Joseph Israels, Jacob Meris and Jan Hendrik Weissenbrock, visited Barbizon to paint there. The Hague and Düsseldorf. There was a slight connection between the Düsseldorf Art Association when an exhibition on fishing in Scheveningen occurred. It concerned such artists as Carl Hilgers Eder, Herman Mevius Eder, Karl Adloff Fr., and Andreas Achenbach. The call of the Düsseldorf Painters School attracted artists of the Hague School, such Johannes Bosboom and J. W. Bilders. At the beginning of his career, Joseph Israels went on a study trip to Düsseldorf. Also Julius van der Sandy Backhuizen and Philip Sardie came to Düsseldorf. The Düsseldorf Academy was famous as a training center for her scenery and histories painting. The bright color order which distinguishes those paintings is unmistakable. The Hague School. Gerard Bilders had been seeking something of the kind in his own work, but on visiting the National Exhibition in Brussels in 1860, he found what he had been looking for, a colored gray tonality, or as he put it, the impression of a warm, fragrant gray. The muted tones and warm gray that Bilders found here was certainly discussed with his friends in Oosterbeek, and found its way into the work of the young Hague School painters. The migration of these artists to The Hague began in the late 1860s. Hendrik Willem Mesdag was the first, moving there in 1869. Jacob Meris returned to The Hague in 1870 after the family's experience in Paris in the Franco-Prussian War. That same year Joseph Israels came to The Hague, as did Anton Mauve. Willem Meris, Johannes Bosboom, and Weissenbruck had always lived there. For Mesdag, the move marked the end of his student days in Brussels. For Meris it meant a break with the Paris dealers, who would not let him paint what he wanted. Friendship played an important role in this group of painters, and whenever one of them was invited to take part in a major exhibition, he would arrange for his friends to also submit work. The outside world was thus presented with a picture of a united artistic and stylized front. The grey tonality was to become one of the characteristics of the Hague School. The name the Hague School was coined in 1875 by a critic, Jacob van Sattenkolff, who used the phrases "the new way of seeing and depicting things," intent to convey mood, tone takes precedence over color, almost exclusive preference for so-called bad weather effects, and a grey mood. The Hague School artists were less interested in a faithful portrayal of what they saw than in conveying the atmosphere and impression of the moment. They painted mostly in subdued colors, with a penchant for grey. That is why the Hague School is sometimes also called the Grey School. The painters of the Hague School conducted some of their artistic discussions as member of the Paulcree Studio, which had been founded in 1847 by Bosboom, Willem Roelofs, and J. H. Weissenbruck at the home of the Hague painter Lambertus Hardenberg. Growing discontent among the young artists in The Hague about the apparently insufficient opportunities for training and development was the reason for establishing the Paulcree Studio. Many members of the Hague School served on the board of the Paulcree Studio, so that the society became a bastion of the school for many years. Over the years, the artists of the Hague School changed. Jacob Meris enriched his palette with vivid brushwork, especially in his Amsterdam town views. Joseph Israels had completely abandoned his anecdotal manner and somber coloring. J. H. Weissenbruck blurred the details in his later work, painting beach scenes and landscapes in magnificently conceived planes of color with an almost abstract quality. Willem Meris became the painter of light he had always tried to be, producing summer meadows with sunlight sparkling on the water, and cattle at the quintessence of the Dutch landscape. Matthijs Meris' further development was also remarkable, albeit tragic. Despite the support of family and friends, he led a solitary existence. He worked for years on his paintings of brides and portraits of children, which became increasingly hazy and dreamy until finally becoming completely detached from reality. Sequel. By the mid-1880s the united front of the Hague School began to crumble. The character of the city of The Hague changed as it became larger. The small fishing village of Scheveningen changed as new suburbs were built and factories transformed the area. Weissenbruck and Roelofs found The Hague to be growing too fast, and retreated to the polders to continue painting. Anton Mauve and Joseph Israels became active in the Leren School, one which perpetuated aspects of the Hague School. Albert Nieuhuis, Hein Kever, and Evert Peters were especially active there between 1880 and 1900. Realistic interiors of Leren farmhouses, as well as plein air landscapes, were the preferred subjects of the paintings. Anton Mauve was particularly active in the latter, and his views of the heathlands were quite popular with American art lovers. While The Hague was becoming too large for some, it was too small for others who became influential in the Amsterdam Impressionism group which developed there. This movement drew on city life for its subject matter, although the contrast with the Hague School was less pronounced than is occasionally suggested. This group included some who are designated below as members of the second generation of the Hague School such as George Hendrik Breitner, Isaac Israels the son of Joseph Israels, Willem Bastiaan Tholen, and Willem de Swart, also known as William Black. In addition, Willem Wissen, Floris Verster, Jan Hillebrand Weismuller, and Jan Toorop the two have some background with the Hague School, and are considered to be in the Amsterdam Impressionism movement. Although not usually associated with the Hague School, Johann Jonkind was called a forerunner of Impressionism who influenced Eugene Boudin, who later was mentor to Claude Monet. Others who had at least a tangential connections with the artists of the Hague School are Charles Rocussin, Richard Bisschop, and Laurence Alma-Tadema. Around the 1890s in France, Impressionism was followed by Post-Impressionism, which places greater emphasis on the form, structure, and content of the painting. This movement, too, was picked up in the Netherlands, resulting in a Dutch Post-Impressionism, and introducing abstract elements and cubism into modern painting. Famous examples are Vincent van Gogh, who received his first art training from Anton Mauve, as well as Piet Mondrian, who initially painted in the manner of the Hague School, and then in a variety of styles and techniques, documenting his search for a personal style. Representatives. Forerunners. First generation. Second generation. Forerunners. Builders, Johannes Warnardus 1811–1890. Kokerkeek, Bernd Cornelis 1803–1862. Schelfhout, Andreas 1787–1830. Van der Sandybach Huijsen, Hendrik 1795–1860. Van Hove, Bartholomeus 1790–1880. Van Hove, Hubertus 1819–1865. Jacob Jan van der Marten 1820–1879. Charles Rocussin, 1814–1894. Van Os, Peter Frederick 1808–1892. Waldorp, Anthony 1803–1866. First generation. Orts, David Adolf Constant 1837–1890. Bilders, Gerard 1838–1865. Bosboom, Johannes 1817–1891. De Haas, Johannes Hubertus Leonardus 1832–1908. Gabriel, Paul Joseph Constantine, 1828–1903. Israels, Joseph 1824–1911. Meris, Jacob 1837–1899. Meris, Matthijs 1839–1917. Meris, Willem 1844–1910. Mauve, Anton 1838–1888. Mesdag, Hendrik Willem 1831–1915. Mesdag, Tucko 1822–1902. Mesdag van Houten, Sina 1834–1909. Roelofs, Willem 1822–1897. Weissenbruck, Jan Hendrik 1824–1903. Second generation. Ackeringa, Johannes Evert Hendrik 1861–1942. Arnsenius, Floris 1864–1925. Blommers, Bernard J. 1845–1914. Breitner, George Hendrik 1857–1923. De Bock, Theophile 1851–1904. De Hoog, Bernard 1866–1943. De Swart, Willem 1862–1931. Israels, Isaac 1865–1934. Nieuwhuis, Albert 1844–1914. Poggenbeek, George Jan Hendrik Ugio. Sardie, Philip 1837–1904. Tholen, Willem Bastian at 1860 to 1931. Van der Sandybach-Huizen, Julius at 1835 to 1925. Van der Wiel, Herman Johannes at 1852 to 1930. Van Houten, Gerrit at 1866 to 1934. Van Rappoort, Anhun at 1858 to 1892. Weismuller, Jan Hillebrand at 1855 to 1925. Adrianus Hendrikus Ori Ijak Uyens at 1881 to 1956.
Gallery of the important forerunners. Gallery of the first generation. Gallery of the second generation.